You're watching The Big Question with me, Tamanna Inamdar. If you thought annual appraisals and progress reports were all that you had to worry about as an employee, think again. Borrowing from Musk's dodgy handbook, Ola CEO Bhavish Aggarwal has ordered all employees across his companies to submit a 5-pointer weekly report outlining their accomplishments. The new initiative is something he's calling Kya Chal Raha Hai, which is ironically something that Ola employees perhaps are asking themselves after the rollout of this policy as they scramble to summarize their week in a 3 to 5 bullet point. The new policy came to light after an internal email sent by Aggarwal to employees mandated this weekly progress report. Now, according to the email, employees must submit their report to their managers and a dedicated company email with no exceptions allowed. The first deadline was set for the end of the day following the announcement, with future reports due every Sunday. Aggarwal has in the past not shied away from drawing comparisons between himself and Elon Musk, sometimes even saying that Musk is someone he looks up to. He's used phrases like Tesla for the West and Ola for the rest. The directive, of course, shows how much he follows Elon Musk. It also arrives at a critical time for Ola, which has recently witnessed massive layoffs. The company's EV arm, Ola Electric, has laid off close to 1,500 employees. This is the second round of layoffs that the company has witnessed in the past 6 months. Earlier, 500 employees were sacked in November last year. Ola already has pretty stringent work policies relative to the kind of space it's in. There's no work from home allowed, but it's just not an Ola story. What we're talking about today is a larger question of corporate culture. And also, is this truly an efficient way to boost accountability as well as efficiency in the system? So that's the question we're asking today. Are weekly check-ins efficient or extreme? Will they boost accountability, or does it lead to micromanagement, which honestly is not just an irritant for the person who has to write the weekly report, but for their managers and all the way to the top? Is it a waste of time, or does it actually boost the bottom line? To speak on this, I'm joined today by Prabir Jha, founder and CEO of Prabir Jha People Advisory, Dr. Kapil Kakar, International Behavior and Stress Management Trainer, joining us on the show today. I'm speaking with Satish Shukla, co-founder of Adverb, and Anya Vik, co-founder and MD of Her Haq. So welcome to to all of you, and thank you so much for speaking with us today. I'm going to actually start the conversation with Satish and Anya, because I want to understand this from the employer's perspective and from the founder's perspective. Satish, let me begin with you. Do you think this is an idea that makes sense? Were you ever considering this after you saw all of this? That let me get this email system going?
So obviously what Musk is doing in US with Doge is an interesting thing to follow from a personal perspective. But as an employer, we have never considered asking all of our employees to write a bullet point every week and send in what they are doing. There have been things like, so there was something called a founder's mode that was made famous some time back, where one of the founders of a very famous startup said that you need to micromanage, but you cannot scale an organization with that approach. Some of the things that we look at while we are building our corporate culture per se is we hire individuals based on their demonstrated behavior, which is easily accessible during your interview process. You can follow a competency-based framework to hire the right kind of people.
No, one minute. Let's not go off topic, Satish. You started by saying that what Elon did in the US was interesting. And I'm sure by that note, what Bhavish has done in Bengaluru is also interesting. Did the thought cross your mind? That was my first question. Did the thought cross your mind? Do you think, as someone who's trying to manage people and maximize productivity and output at the end of the day, that it's a good idea?
No, it's not a good idea to micromanage people. It will not help you to scale your organization, to put it bluntly.
And to get a weekly review of what you are doing on paper.
You can definitely get weekly check-ins of your direct reports, probably the 6 or 8 people who are reporting to you. But it is not possible to get a weekly check-in from 1,000, 2,000 people on a weekly basis and spend all your time seeing what they are doing and what not they are doing.
Okay. Anya, let me get your perspective in on this.
Absolutely. So I work with a lot of young people, and I can tell you that every generation feels like the next generation works lesser, but that's absolutely not true. I really think that the modern workplace is shifting, and the more you put these boxes of efficiency and these boxes of constantly reporting, I think it not just doesn't help with efficiency, but also definitely increases the kind of panic that people have within the organization. And micromanagement will obviously hamper the creativity that people have within the organization. If your mindset is to make sure that your employees feel comfortable, you're able to create a mechanism where there are goals that are set with discussions, that makes sense. But to have it on paper and just to focus on something that's very quantitative, not care about the impact, not care about, how these results are achieved, I just think it's excessive micromanagement and it will not work in the longer run, especially for bigger organizations.
Okay, so you have two founders who I think are trying to be on the right side of this debate right now and saying that no, this is micromanagement. Dr. Kapil, what is your view?
Well, I disagree with both my co-panelists. For me, it's an excellent decision. And why I say this is because an organization which has been in continual losses, and these losses are not small, that is one. Secondly, they are not meeting their targets. When I say they're not meeting their sales target, the target what I have seen was 50,000, and they have been achieving 25,000 vehicles. Thirdly, the customer service is very poor. That is another issue. And fourth, there is low motivation amongst the people in the organization because of the previous retrenchment that had happened. So an organization which is failing in all fronts, the promoter of the organization will have to take the rein in his hands, because you have to understand when your when the quality of the product is being compromised, when the customer service.
One minute, Dr. Kapil, I think we're getting a little specific. You're speaking in the context of Ola right now.
Yes, that's right.
So you're saying if no. So then let me say this: if the then if the quality, interesting argument, if the quality of the product is getting compromised, if the organization is facing problems, then that kya chal raha hai question should be asked to the guys on the top.
Yes.
Not to the bottom. Who is asking the CEO? कि आपका क्या चल रहा है? Where is your 5-day report?
Yes. So I'll answer that. I will not call it micromanagement. I will call it close monitoring. That is first thing. Because this is not micromanagement, one. Secondly, asking kya chal raha hai and seeking weekly reports, this is a very good strategy, I think, which perhaps the promoters missed, because from there you get a lot of but the information that you get, you can assess that information at every level and you can draw your conclusion on kya chal raha hai. Thirdly, the pertinent question which you asked me, then he should have been asking the CEO. Please understand, in leadership, there are 4 styles of leaderships. One is your directive, supportive, consulting, and delegative. Now, normally what happens is at a CEO level, it is a delegative leadership style which is applied, which is low on regulation and low on nurturing. However, when the CEOs are failing, etc., what Bhavish here has done is he has gone to the supportive leadership style, which is high on regulation and high on nurturing.
Okay.
Please understand. Yeah. So yes, please.
Okay. So this is a supportive leadership style. That's interesting because we're talking to
and one more thing.
Yes.
The mother of all leadership styles is the situational leadership style. No leadership style is right or wrong. It is, even if you have to scale up, you have to see your current challenges, current situation, and accordingly you will change your leadership style. You can't get fixated to a leadership style.
If I agree. My question is the leadership, should the leader, if they have so many problems, because you have linked this action to many problems, right? Now, to be fair, in Elon Musk's case, in the Doge department case, and he's clarified this later. He said the reason I asked for this, first of all, is to see if they're real people who are on the payroll of the government. Because he found data which said there were some 150-year-olds and it was fake. And people were collecting government salaries who did not exist. So this was a "Are you really there?" test.
No.
So there's a small
So
nuance there.
think,
No. So Prabir, let Prabir come in. Let Prabir come in on the basic premise. We're taking two examples and we're addressing a bigger issue. Of course, in the context of Ola, it might be a little different. They are dealing with a lot of crisis. One could turn around and ask that then is the crisis the fault of the rest of the organization, or does the responsibility lie at the top? But as a practice, is this efficient or is it excessive? Let's come to the core question. Prabir Jha, your response.
Yeah, Tamanna, from my own executive experience of leading HR of very large corporations and in the last 6 years advising clients, my simple answer is this is not a sustainable option. Is it something new? Not really. There are firms, law firms, there are IT companies which have had a practice of weekly reports, but that is more in terms of things which are billable. So in a business which counts itself on billable hours, I think that's a requirement. To me, it's a very big strategic issue, and I do not want to kind of comment only on a company, but this particular company does not have a reputation necessarily of having been a very productive company. It has its highs and lows and dips, and a lot of it is to do also with the personality style of leadership. And at the end of the day, to me, this smacks of low trust, which is absolutely unsustainable, which will not attract or keep the kind of talent that possibly will pull Ola out of its problems. And I think it's a very short-sighted and, in my view, a very, very myopic response that the company is undertaking. This is absolutely unsustainable. It's bad for PR. And gone are the days where you could be a cowboy promoter and get away with it. People are spoiled for choice.
I'm not sure. I mean, at least the promoters don't think gone are the days. I don't know how there's
yeah,
something.
no promoter thinks. That's the sad thing. But, if you look at data, many of the so-called very marquee unicorns have had big crashes in their market cap. And when you trace back, a lot of the issues are to do with things which, to me, are about very, very poor HR and culture management ethos of the company.
Okay, I saw Satish wanting to come in on the point that Kapil was making. Yes, Satish.
So, Tamanna, the way you explained what Elon Musk was doing with Doge, we have to understand that we are talking about a person who was new into the system, into the government bureaucracy. And see, context is very important. And probably through this mechanism, he was trying to understand what is the role of each department and function, right? And any new executive or top executive or CEO, they need to eat their cat. They need to understand the basics of the business when they join a new organization. And probably for some time, they would want to go into the details of a particular team or a function and could do such kind of initiatives. As Prabir sir has also mentioned, this is there in some of the industries where it is billable. But when you are founder, promoter, and you have been there with the organization since day one, you just cannot wake up one day and say that now I'm going to review what all 2,000 people are doing. It's just not sustainable. And definitely it's a cowboy approach. And as Sir has said, I agree. The world has changed, and this cowboy approach does not fly with employees anymore.
Cowboy approach does not fly with employees anymore. Dr. Kapil, you want to respond to that? Even if it's situational, I mean, I think situational, and I would question that who's determining what the situation is, right?
See,
it is the person who's implementing it, who's questioning the leader on whether this is apt or not.
See, this information has come to us, so we are assuming that this is a quick fix solution which this fellow must have taken, which I don't primarily agree, because I'm sure he would have tried and tested a lot of other things before drawing this conclusion that this is what he needs to now do. Obviously, it is not a sustainable thing in today's culture and environment, but if you need a short-term solution, something like this, so that you can rein back the control of the organization and see who is doing what, I think this is a good move. Secondly, as far as Doge is concerned, I think when the panel that we are drawing is a little different, because Doge is primarily bringing in reforms in the bureaucracy in US. It has nothing to do with scaling up the system or that it is. So those is primarily, they want the bureaucracy to be more accountable, which is rightly so, because if you see in India also, the bureaucracy can do anything and can get away with anything.
Are you saying that same paradigm should be applied on our bureaucrats here? क्या चल रहा है? Let's give a weekly feedback form. इस हफ्ते क्या किया?
Absolutely. With these people, the accountability is the key. For your knowledge, in fact, in 2014-15, I had put a PIL in Delhi High Court on police reforms, where I studied the behavior of the police of almost 25 countries, including China, States, Europe, etc. And I said, these are the 8-10 things in reforms which are required. Obviously, the court did not do anything. In fact, I think they did not understand also what I was trying to say. But such studies are important. And this, what Bhavish has also done is, it is primarily a strategic issue, which I think he had no other option but to do it. Like I said, because his CEOs, etc., were failing, the middle management was failing, and who was taking the brunt? The people who are down below, who are the executors, which is highly unfortunate.
Okay.
For me, this should have been taken much before this decision.
Okay, so I mean, what Musk says and why he says it is a whole different conversation maybe, but Anya, let's come in with this perspective. If you are a leader, you are trying to bring efficiency into your organization, is it really so bad to know what is going on? I mean, this is systemically implemented in a lot of large organizations where you have a weekly performance sheet, or you have a log where people know what you have been doing through the week.
So I'll quickly share what we do at Harhak. What we do is we have a weekly mechanism where there are weekly check-ins. We don't ask people to put it on a piece of paper and give us 5 points what they have achieved during the week. I think what I as a founder believe in is impact more than the amount of emails they would have sent or the quantitative aspect of it. And this, I would say, and I think already mentioned by the other panelists, I think context really matters. If you're starting a company and if you've always had this position that there need to be daily check-ins or they need to be regularized check-ins, I support it, just to ensure that, okay, OKRs are being met. But I also feel that check-in needs to be done with your manager. You're able to share what's on your plate. But like you rightly said, right, who's pulling up people at the top? Who knows what other senior managers and people at the senior level are doing? Is there any accountability for them? And the context for this case, I think, really matters, because you're laying off people. According to Bloomberg reports, 1,000 employees have been laid off. So are you doing this under the garb of...
You're talking about Doge.
No, I'm talking about Ola right now. In the past few months, so many employees have been laid off, right? So is this message in the garb of efficiency, or are you just asking for this reporting to make sure who stays and who goes? Because then people are just going to pretend to look busy than actually achieve efficiency. So there has to be a difference between how you check in, what kind of accountability measures you have, and what space you're giving to your employees. You can't have an organization of thousands of employees and one day decide that everybody is now going to email what they're doing. Change comes with time, but also to take into consideration what is happening at the lower level.
Dr. Kapil wants to respond. Yes.
We also don't know the feedback that he's seeking. Is it objective or subjective? If the feedback is objective in nature, yes, then it can be quantified. It can be used for assessment and analysis.
But can it be with every job? Every job does not have targets which are objective and quantifiable. Right.
No, see,
say on business development, you do 20 meetings in a week, but you crack the deal maybe once in a month.
See, for example, we've been doing organizational scan and OT intervention for more than 20 years now, right? So what happens in the organization is the data that you collect, if it's an objective. So this objective is not about the department. Objective is about the questions that is being asked. If that data can help the organization in some way, it is helpful. Second is the subjective. So what I think is, Bhavish somewhere does not have a lot of confidence on his top management. So he's wanting to dive in and understand the basic issues which the people are facing, or the feedbacks which are important for him to make decisions.
There's no way to know. There's no way to know what someone is thinking. We can only guesstimate, and there's no really no point really in thinking what is in one founder's mind. There might be something, there might not be something. What is the outline that we should take away from this? And Satish wanted to come in. That's why we have two founders as well who have to run companies and talk to people. Is this a reflection of underconfidence in your team?
So as you rightly mentioned, we should not dwell on what a particular founder is doing.
There's no way to know.
Yeah. So see from a generic point of view, or from somebody who's running a business point of view, first of all, in HR, you cannot just copy a policy which is being followed in any organization. You will first have to understand what stage of growth your organization is, what kind of problems you are trying to solve for. Are you trying to engineer a turnaround? Are you trying to scale your business? Are you trying to consolidate your position? Right? That will determine what kind of policies do you want to follow. You should also be able to understand the maturity of your leaders, maturity of your organization, and how will people perceive your decision. Communication is very important, right? As my co-panelist was saying, that you're laying off people on one hand, and then you're asking others to justify their work. What kind of impact will it have on the psyche of the rest of the workforce?
Yeah.
Every employee, including me or any co-founder or any other employee, loves autonomy, right? You need to give people the autonomy to take decisions so that they can be accountable for their decisions. And that's how they grow in the organization. And that's where you cannot have an approach where you try to get involved in every decision. You hire the right kind of people, you give them autonomy, you give them the right resources, you make them accountable, and that's how you build a culture of the organization. And again, each organization will have a very different culture. If I take the analogy of cricket, Australian team will have a very different culture, Indian team will have a very different culture, New Zealand team will have a very different culture, and they can all succeed with their own culture. So you just don't need to copy what is happening somewhere else, and you just need to implement it for the sake of it. That's what I feel.
Okay. Prabir wanted to come in. Prabir, here the question is that what is the messaging that you're trying to send out? And I think one point that Anya made, when you institute something like this, you're going to have people just making up things that they're doing or trying to fill. I'll take the analogy of writing exams, where you feel if you fill more sheets, you will get better marks, even if the content might not be that great. I think that's something that everyone can identify with. You don't want that happening in your organization, right? Everyone's scurrying around and trying to look busy, and then your outcomes don't really match what you're seeing on your weekly sheet.
Well, Tamanna, you're bang on. And, I've been in the business of HR and coaching leaders, and I can tell you this has been the most tactical, short-sighted, and absolutely illogically thought step, which typically comes from a very control freak of a founder, which apparently is the reputation he enjoys. And because you run the company, you think you're the smartest sheriff in town, so that you're entitled to your view in your company. But at a normative level, I agree totally with what Satish said, that either you don't know how to hire right, or if you've hired right, you've not structured your organization right. Third is, if you want to be in the business, in the new age business, which involves creative thinking and people enjoying to be accountable and have a sense of ownership, it is an issue of how do you trust them? He's got his entire thinking wrong. If it were a case study, and you mark my words, this is a disaster which will get worse. It's why did he lay off 1,000 people? Why did he not anticipate right? It is an example of an absolutely, utterly disastrous HR experience. And as a commentator on HR... Are
you talking about Elon, or are you talking about Bhavish?
No, I'm not talking about Elon. Elon is just a reference point. We can talk about Elon on some other call. I'm talking about Ola in this particular case, Bhavish, and such characters, because I see this as a pattern. And this entire belief that I know it all. Just because you put in your money and it's your money at stake, you also don't do things which will harm you even more. And this is a classic example. I think there is a bigger issue of knowing what you want to review. If you want to get a sense of the pulse of the nation, you don't have to ask for weekly reports. And I completely agree. This is another bureaucracy that will be degenerative. People will cook up information. And there are many, and I think one of you mentioned it, there are many, many jobs where you actually don't have something to write about every week. What are you going to write? 5 points. Just for the sake of it, you'll break it down. I mean, I don't know what he's trying to achieve. And to me, it is very bizarre, and it is actually a shocker. And this is another example of yet another founder, writing his own recipe for disaster.
Okay, a quick response. Dr. Kapil everyone wants to come in. So very quickly, I just have about a minute. Yeah.
I just add one thing. Sorry,
Okay, now Dr. Kapil first. We'll have to do about 10 seconds each, please, to get everyone in. Yes, Dr. Kapil first.
Okay, so one thing we are assuming is that this guy has become control freak overnight, as if he just started his organization yesterday. The organization is doing extremely well, and this guy is still a cold control freak. We have to understand the kind of losses, the kind of motivation level which is already down, the kind of uncertainty which is already in the organization.
Okay.
This will not help.
It's a context. Okay, he's saying there's a context. Okay, one. You have to give him a discount. What are you saying?
Absolutely. Yes, I'm saying.
I think the customers want a discount. Okay, one.
Why he's doing this?
Okay, Satish, yes, very quickly.
I just wanted to add one point to what Prabir sir said. Sir, sometimes it is not the founder's money, it is the VC money. So money is not of the founder. And if I have to just add one thing about corporate culture, right? See, it is very important to give people freedom with responsibility. And that is what sets the right tone in the organization and also motivates people to go above and beyond. And only then can you succeed and you can scale your organization. You cannot be present everywhere, right?
Okay. A quick word from Anya before we wrap.
I think one super important thing that we're all missing is that we have to look at the larger picture. This is one organization that is going to implement this, and there are so many people in India and so many organizations that look up to Bhavish. And what we're missing out is that we're putting a lot of workload distribution and resentment in these employees and not looking at why accountability exists. Accountability is to ensure efficiency. And the way you do it has to boost productivity and not lead to people in panic mode and not lead to people being fired. So if you really want accountability, sit down, have a weekly chat with your manager, discuss the load on your plate, and also redistribute the kind of work that you're doing. It can't be 5 pointers. Not all jobs, not all roles, and not all people do the same work.
No, I mean, for all you know, there are a lot of people. So to put that in perspective, there might be a lot of founders who are implementing them. Not everyone is tweeting about it or telling people that they're doing it. So, I mean, that's not really the point. The point to understand is this: does this really lead to efficiency, or is it panic? Is it then people pretending to work more or actually doing something to improve the organization? I suppose it's a journey every founder will have to make. But yes, I suppose the other point is that the tolerance level of employees for such farmans, if I may use the word, might be reducing day by day. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us on the show and having this discussion. We actually had a poll online on our social media handles to ask what your view is. Take a look at the results as well. We'll hope to hear from you, feedback on this show and what else you want to see, but we'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. Stay tuned.